do Russians point at their food, or just you as an American?
Just me as an American. I'm sure they just say what it is. Give
Oh.
me that.
Well, hey, good day, fellow wanderers. This is Joseph, and we're here with episode 9. It's going to be episode 9, all the way from Russia. I got my friend Steve on the line. It's evening time there. It's morning here, but you don't care because you're watching this, listening to it on your podcast or online, wherever you are. You're out wandering around. Hopefully you got your earbuds in, walking the woods, walking the street somewhere, and checking out what's around you. This is the second of 2 episodes. I'm trying to get 3 actually now of friends of mine that are living overseas. Last week we have Amy Gutierrez in Belize, and now Steve in Russia. Is it still called Russia, or should we? It's not called the Soviet Union or anything like that.
Nope, it's Russia.
Okay. We'd like to get our pronunciations and correct here on the podcast. And so you originally went to Russia and lived in a certain town that's actually famous for the Olympics. And this year we did not have the Summer Olympics happen, but you went initially to go to Sochi, Russia, and it was during the Olympic time, was it not?
It was.
And that was
And that was the year that the America warned not to travel to Sochi because it wasn't going to be safe. They were afraid of terrorism or something like that. And so there were very few Americans, unfortunately, at the Sochi Olympics. But we did meet some people there during that time, and that was great.
What was that like living overseas during the Olympics? I mean, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, I mean, it was phenomenal. It was first of all, it's first time overseas, living overseas, and had never been to the Olympics, and it was quite an amazing experience. Leading up to the Olympics, there was nonstop construction in Sochi, and so that was pretty crazy. Traffic was insane. They basically rebuilt the infrastructure of this city to host the Olympics.
Yes.
Which afterwards, it was phenomenal because traffic flowed great, everything functioned well. They were done constructing everything because, the Olympics had happened. And so that was really cool living there during that time. But just the Olympics itself was awesome. Kim and I had the opportunity actually to go to the Russia versus United States men's hockey game.
No way.
Hands down, one of my top experiences in my life for sure. So just the excitement in the room, except for US beat them. And honestly, that was depressing because the whole crowd was Russian.
Yeah.
And then it came down to a shootout, and they just missed their last shot. And the crowd went from going crazy, like, come on, we got this, to silence. And like 7 Americans standing up with their flags, yay! And then like, oh.
And then you got beat up.
No.
Are you a guy that's going to go to something like that and drape a flag around you, or are you going to be like, play it cool, wear a little red, white, and blue?
I'll wear a shirt. I'll wear a red, white, and blue shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to go nuts with the American what.
Yeah, again, maybe it's not the most politically correct nor safest thing to do. So you were there in Sochi, and then you recently, over the last, 5 years, 4 years, you moved up to
5 years now.
St. Petersburg, Russia. When I was growing up, I always called it St. Petersburg, Moscow, because I always thought Moscow was the name of the country, but it's not. It's not. Talk to us about St. Petersburg. Again, you're a guy that's, lived in L.A., you lived in Seattle, lived in Madison, Wisconsin. how does it compare to any of that? And we see pictures, but what's the reality of what's life like there?
St. Petersburg is the most European feeling and looking city in Russia. You really do, in a lot of ways, feel like you're in Europe. I mean, it is Europe,
Yeah.
but Russia kind of has its own culture and look to it. And but St. Petersburg is unique architecturally, and also I think the people have kind of a more of a Western perspective than most of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the cultural capital of Russia. Lots of amazing musicians and artists are here. It's a young city, lots of universities, and it's like we always call it the city that never sleeps, and it's kind of like Las Vegas in that way. It's like you can go out any time of the day or night, and there's just people walking around and enjoying cafes and
Yeah.
street musicians, and it's just super fun to be here. Super. If you're gonna live in Russia, St. Petersburg, I think, is a great place to live. There's a city center that's pretty large city center, and it's very walkable. I can't remember how couple kilometers area.
Look at you going all European with kilometers. Wow.
Yeah, what's a mile? I don't even
know anymore.
Right now it's 22 degrees, so I don't really understand Fahrenheit very well anymore. I don't think about it very much. So Celsius, so it's a pretty hot day, pretty nice. But yeah, there's a city center that's really phenomenal. Lots of really cool historic buildings, and again, street musicians, cafes, people, tourists. There are lots of tourists here, and I would definitely say, walk around by yourself, get lost. You'll know when you're leaving kind of the center area, and it looks different. It looks more like what we call real Russia.
Yeah.
And so you just go back towards the center. They kind of call it some people call it the Venice of the North. There's lots of canals.
Oh.
Lots of boat tours and things like that. Just beautiful.
So Lady and the Tramp could have been recorded in St. Petersburg. Not Italy.
Why not? I think except for we're not famous for our pasta.
We don't want truth to get in the way of a good story. Most people probably don't know is that you can't just get a ticket to Russia and fly in. You got to get a visa. You have to get permission. Your passports usually don't get you in. They prove that you're a citizen of another country, but you have to get a visa to be there, and that's what you guys are on. Some work visas, and how does that work? Do you know how that works for normal just tourists?
As far as I know, so there's the cruises that they come in the Baltic Sea cruises, and on those you get like I think you stop for 2 days, maybe. It depends. But then your visa's included with your cruise ticket, but then you're with a tour guide that entire time, and so you're not really allowed to just wander the city by yourself, which is okay in some ways because tour guide knows where they're going, but then you don't get to see some of the unique places, and you definitely don't get to eat at some of the the more authentic
places.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
Huh?
The real Russian places.
Yeah, the real Russian, where Russians go to eat, So
what do Russians eat? What's the normal? Get me out of my stereotypic thoughts of what a Russian eats.
Well, no, you're probably right with your stereotypical thoughts. Lots of meat and potatoes. So it's like northern Wisconsin. I mean, it's like hearty food, We just throw in some beets in there and call it a day. But typical Russian really enjoys eating at a stolovaya. And it's like a buffet type of setting where you walk in and you point to what you want to put on your plate. And put that on and you pay for the plate.
Okay. Hey, what has it been like being there, it just you're in obviously a cross cultural setting. I wouldn't suspect a ton of people speak a lot of great English, let alone very little. Maybe the younger kids do, younger teens. So you're obviously coming as a different culture. You came with your three kids. What was that like? Just jumping into a new culture.
I mean, so the first year was very challenging. I mean, my wife, she studied Russian when she was in college, and she
Mm-hmm.
knew some Russian. And so when we moved, she was able to communicate at some level with people. But when we lived in Sochi, and then second year we lived in Chelyabinsk, another city, and both those years we met very few people who knew any English at all.
Yeah.
And it was for sure one of those cases where if we were walking down the road with the kids and they were talking, people would just turn and stare at you like you were always like the center of attention
Wow.
because people could not understand what are these English speakers doing in my city, you know?
Yeah.
When we moved to St. Petersburg, totally different feel. It's very, I mean, it's very big tourist city, and they hear English speakers all the time. And so nobody even bothers to look our direction if we're walking down the road talking or something like that. I mean, the hardest part was leaving all of our friendships and family and influence, our positions behind, and stepping into a place where we had no authority, had no family, had no relationships, and it's you and your family, and then a few people that you're trying to get to know
Yeah.
in a place that you don't understand. And it was a first year, really tough year, but really good in a lot of ways too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How do you keep your family traditions when you're in another culture? Did you do stuff with your kids to kind of remind them of back home, or did you just kind of go, hey, this is what culture is here?
Well, we do a little bit of both. And we've made some new traditions. So now, our visas say we have to leave Russia every 6 months. And so one thing that we typically do now around Christmas times, because we usually do is go to the U.S. in the summer for a month or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get back to Russia. And then around Christmas time is when we should be leaving again.
Yeah.
And so we always take a Christmas trip to a different place because we have to leave anyway. So let's make it our
Yeah.
holiday, and let's go somewhere that we've not been. And so it's kind of this tradition now of checking out new places in Europe during Christmas time. And then so we're always celebrating Christmas in a different country, basically.
Wow. What? So that's interesting. What kind of countries have you been to? And again, we're as Americans, we don't have a geographical setting of life most of the time because everything is either far or close,
Mhm.
and we think other countries are so far away. But in Europe, obviously, it's things are way closer. Now you have again the border issues with Russia into Estonia. Is that your nearest country?
Estonia and Finland are equally close.
Equally close. So where have you been off to? Maybe on vacation or with your family? What cities or countries have you been to?
So, I mean, for sure, the most memorable city that we went to or country that we went to for Christmas was Israel.
Oh,
And we had direct flights from St. Petersburg to Tel Aviv. They were $237 each. And,
wow.
and then we rented a car and we drove around Israel. And so we were on Christmas Eve, we went to Bethlehem, spent the night there, and then woke up on Christmas Day in Bethlehem. I mean, bar
And the
none, one of the
innkeeper
coolest
didn't
things
say
ever.
no room.
He didn't. No,
He,
we pre-booked on booking.com or something. I don't know.
that's what Mary and Joseph were missing.
I know they didn't make a reservation.
They didn't make a reservation.
They didn't use an agent for this.
Ah,
They should have.
they were banking on
Next time,
their family, and they family let them down. Hey, you know what, Steve? Those guys needed a good travel agent.
I think that's true. They needed you.
If I would have been around, I would have helped Mary and Joseph find a really nice place to stay. So that's you can't top that. So let's go downhill from there.
So
Um,
we can't top that, except for my boys. We went to Turkey last year,
oh,
and we'd never done this, but we went to an all-inclusive hotel
yeah,
on the sea, and we really never left. We didn't rent a car or anything like that. We just
yeah,
went to this hotel, and the hotel was the attraction.
yes.
And my boys can't talk about any other trip except for that one. They're like, we got to go back to Turkey, and for sure, I loved it. I gained like 10 pounds, just eating all day long, and
I
um,
I didn't know there was all inclusives in over there. Usually those
they're
are.
famous.
Oh, okay. Well, then this travel agent needs to look those up too.
Yeah, yeah, and they're pretty inexpensive, good
Uh,
price, especially from Russia. It's a very popular
yeah.
Russian tourist destination. We went to Cyprus one year. We went to Poland one year.
Okay. And again, most people would be like, "Oh, it must be nice you get to go do those things." But it'd be like, me saying I went to Chicago one year, and I went to, Minneapolis another year, and I went to Seattle. Like it
Yeah, it's really true.
it's not that it's a big deal, obviously, because these are amazing countries with such history. But when you're living over there, you definitely have to take advantage of the spots you're in.
Right. When you live in Europe, of course, you would go to these European cities. It's much smaller than the United States, actually.
Yeah,
Europe. So,
it reminds me of a couple years we lived in Virginia. I was like, I'm so close to all of these places, and I'm not going to any of
right.
them. And I was like, I went on a spree for about 6 months. I was like, because I knew we were going to be leaving, and I'm like, I have got to go to these. I just started checking off cities, and I'm like, I was, 8, 9 hours from New York, and I never went to New York. And I'm still this day, I'm like, gosh, I was that close. Like I could have drove, and nope. You miss
You
what's
still haven't
around
been
you.
there.
No, I've never been to New York.
Yeah.
Now at this point in my life, I might just be like, I've never been to New York and I'm never going, just to say I never. It's like saying
Oh, that's
I've never
some
watched
twist
The
in that
Office.
story.
I've never watched Parks and Rec. I'm just not going to do it. Never watched
Smart.
Lost. Just to be that guy. Um, what do you, Steve? What do you do when you live overseas to stay connected to family and friends? And what would you wish your family and friends? Because many of us that wander around, us fellow wanderers, have friends that are overseas, but we just don't know what to do. How do we
Hmm.
engage in your life a little bit? That's not intrusive, but also meaningful. And you're going to speak for
Hmm.
every American living overseas
Oh
right now,
man,
so be
I'm
good
in
because
trouble.
this is an international podcast. People listen to it all over, and they pretty much do everything I recommend.
Okay, so of course, FaceTime. Everybody uses FaceTime or Messenger or something like Zoom now.
Yeah,
Um, so that's good. Have that. I mean, we're interacting. It's awesome to see you and to chat with you and
yeah.
um,
That's
having
what my
that.
wife says to me every day. My wife says that to me every day. It's so good to interact with you, chat with you.
Just come over here. Let's do that some more. So I think, of course, that's a big deal, and it's funny how available. I think people, kind of out of sight, out of mind,
Hmm.
and so people just think, oh, they're busy, or they just don't think about you at all, or
Yeah,
somehow, thinking of that person and just picking up the phone and calling like you would call anybody else. I
yeah,
think is the thing. The cool part would be if somebody just came,
yeah,
not to do something for us, but to just hang out with us.
yeah,
And a few recommendations there: get your own hotel. Don't make the person that you're going to visit babysit you, but just
yeah,
be present and be available and hang out
yeah.
when they're able to, and just to have that true face-to-face interaction. Have somebody just come to see you, just because you're
Yeah.
friends, family. Man, that would be life
It's
giving.
it's funny you say that because you should be hearing a knock on your door right now, and somebody's there to greet you.
Oh man, who's it gonna be?
Would that be awesome if that would have really happened?
That would be awesome.
Gosh, maybe if maybe
Maybe.
episode 100 when I actually have a budget and sponsors and stuff, that would have been legit to have that on video.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to get your hopes up
but
there.
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm really brokenhearted now, but
A couple more
it's
thoughts.
typical. I'm
Typical. Speaking of brokenhearted, your wife.
Don't worry. Yeah.
You were famous for a while on the social medias for doing morning conversations with Kim, and it seemed to
Yes.
stop. And it was just random. You videoing your wife with her, hair up and her pajamas on, and she'd stare at you and be like, "Stop!" And yelling at you and telling you why are you recording her and things like that. And then you would slowly go morning conversations with Kim. Why does that not happen anymore? Are you too cool
That's
for that?
no. I mean, can we blame it on coronavirus?
You kicked your wife
Somehow.
out of your house so you don't get corona? Is that
Well,
what
so
it
here's
is?
the deal.
She's not with you anymore?
We are sleeping in longer than we used to. Um, Staying up later than we used
Yeah.
to, and I think it has to do with this whole season that we're in. And so by the time we get up, or by the time I get up, I'll just speak for myself. Like I'm like, oh man, I gotta
Got
eat,
screwed.
read my Bible, and get out the door
Yeah.
because I got some stuff to do. And so just the time crunch, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Less
Uh,
leisure time in the morning, the early morning to,
to screw around.
yeah.
Uh,
But I like it. I mean, we'll bring it. Thanks for the
please.
encouragement. I think
Please. That's the only reason why I follow you on social media.
okay. I'm sorry.
Is that-
I've let the mask down. I will.
Yes. I'll put your all of your socials on my podcast here so people can know where to get you, so maybe they can see it. Your wife has been starting a blog and doing some video work too, and that's been really cool to see. It's just been really nice to see people using Medium a little bit differently, and again, everybody's doing it, but yet nobody is. So
Right.
it's been really fun to see her step out and do that. Talk to me about your daughter. So your daughter, you moved when she was in kind of grade school, middle schoolish to Russia, and now she's went off to college. So you aren't just a hop, skip, and jump away anymore from seeing her. She's back in this, or was back in the States. How did that work as a parent again? Just again switching cultures and things like that for her and for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it is surreal that she is not reachable, kind of.
Yeah,
We FaceTime a lot and stuff like that, but to have her on a different continent is pretty surreal. And especially like when this whole coronavirus thing came up, we were wondering, what should we do? What should she do?
yeah,
In the end, we just stayed put where we were. But she's doing really well. I think I think her transition back to the United States definitely challenging. She went to a private international school here in St. Petersburg and had really tight friendships and really enjoyed living overseas. And her experience is way different than so many people that she's connected with right now in college. And so it's been a hard adjustment, like being on the same page as young people in America. But I think it's been a good year for her. And I feel like she finally is kind of settling, probably not totally, but starting to settle into
yeah.
her new old culture. So she was in LA and she drove to Iowa actually to live with with my mom and dad for the summer.
Yeah.
And So she'll drive back out at the end of the summer. And we keep trying to go back. We want to come back, but we don't know. Borders aren't open yet. So
Yeah. Well, again, if you're listening to us and you made it this far, this is Steve Cecil, my friend. We've known of each other, bumped into each other for probably the last 30, 35 years. And grew up going to summer camp together. And he lived in Wisconsin when we moved back to Wisconsin, and had I still to this day remember our breakfast we had together when we met halfway after we moved back to Wisconsin. We met in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, at that cafe with the really cool chairs in it, and had all the mixed. It was just like a diner slash. I don't even remember what it was called.
Motorcycles?
I was riding a motorcycle. I don't know what you were doing. We met there.
It was my longest ride on my motorcycle, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think you actually did come in your bike. Yeah. Super fun, and we've just got reconnected, and again, it's been good to have you on for Fellow Wanderers, episode 9. You got any last thoughts just as you wander around the world? I didn't ask you any small towns in Russia. I usually ask my guests all of that, but you probably mentioned some names that I could never Google because I can't spell them. And I would just tell people, don't worry about the small towns in Russia right now to go visit, but go to St. Petersburg. Any other cities in Russia? Is Moscow worth going to?
I mean, you got to go to Moscow. Definitely, I prefer St. Petersburg. But for me, in Europe, that's the place that I love to, if I'm going to go tourist, as a tourist, go see something, there's lots of amazing places in Europe. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Is Moscow and St. Petersburg doable like in a weekend? Are they too far apart?
Well, you can get a flight to Moscow pretty easily. I mean, there's hundreds of flights. It's constant flights going from St. Petersburg to Moscow, and
you don't drive it though. You don't drive. It's a fly.
I don't have a car actually.
No, I'm saying like a normal person.
You could take a fast train. Fast train is about 4 hours.
Okay.
Flight is about 45 minutes.
Okay.
And yeah, you could do Moscow in a day for sure. And then St. Petersburg, I think St. Petersburg, if you did it in 2 days, you'd be okay. You'd see most stuff.
You'd see most of it.
Yeah.
Like if you've been to Paris.
Have I been to Paris? Yeah,
yes.
I've been to Paris.
Paris is, in my mind, is a 3-dayer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do it,
if you're a museum person, then you would want more time in St. Petersburg for sure.
Oh, yeah. If you're a museum person anywhere, But yeah, 3 days is at Paris. Like, you and I we actually have met up in Tallinn, Estonia. You and I have had coffee in Tallinn. And remember when we took the ferry across to Finland, Helsinki?
Yeah.
Or is that Sweden?
Yeah. Yep, Helsinki. Mm-hmm.
And we had coffee at my neighborhood Starbucks. I call that my neighborhood Starbucks still because I go there more than I go anywhere around here because there's no Starbucks. Those are, Tallinn is a 1 day, or a half a day. Yeah. You can do a half a day in Tallinn and be just fine.
And that's a cool small town right there, right? I mean,
Tallinn is a beautiful, and it just keeps growing on you. So yeah, sorry, that was a long segue to say, do you have anything else to share with your fellow wanderers? Because you wander and we wander well together in our verbose talking.
Nope, I would say there's an amazing world out there. Totally worth seeing. Save some extra money and go and see it. It's phenomenal.
Wow. That's worthy of cueing our exit music on right there. Steve Cecil, everybody, episode 9 of Fellow Wanderers. Thanks, buddy, for coming on today. God bless.